There is a single sentence buried near the end of the New Testament that by every reasonable expectation should not be there. It sits in the small letter of Jude, a book of only 25 verses, tucked between the longer epistles and the storm of Revelation. Most readers pass over it. The careful ones stop. The ones who stop tend not to forget it. Jude writes that Michael the Archangel, when he was disputing with the devil about the body of Moses, did not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." That is the entire reference. No introduction, no backstory, no explanation of why these two figures were arguing, no clarification of what either of them intended to do with the body. The verse assumes the reader already knows the story, but the reader does not. Nowhere in the Hebrew Bible is there an account of a heavenly dispute over Moses. Deuteronomy ends with Moses on the mountain, the Lord burying him, and Israel mourning for 30 days. There is no archangel in that passage. There is no adversary. There is no body being claimed. And yet Jude, writing perhaps 1,000 years after Moses died, reaches for this story as though it were common ground between him and his readers. That gap is the doorway into something older than the New Testament. When a biblical writer references an event the rest of the canon does not record, scholars have long understood that he is drawing from a wider field of Jewish tradition. The first century did not operate the way modern bookshelves do. There was no closed table of contents. There were sacred scrolls in the synagogue, and beyond them there were stories preserved in writing, in liturgy, in oral memory. Some of these stories survived, some of them did not. The question is, which one Jude was holding in his hand when he wrote that line? We will get to the answer. It has a name. It has fragments that still exist, and it changes how the verse should be read. For now, hold on to the strangeness. Jude does not say, according to a tradition. He does not say, some have written. He says it the way a historian states a fact. Michael disputed with the devil about the body of Moses. The verb in Greek is diakrinomai, which carries the weight of a legal disagreement. This is not a sword fight. It is a contention over a claim. Two parties arguing over a right. That single Greek word reframes the entire scene. Whatever happened on the slope of Mount Nebo when Moses died, it was not staged as combat. It was staged as a courtroom. And in a courtroom, one side has standing and the other does not. The body became contested property. The question is, on what grounds? Most retellings rush past this. They reach for the swords and the wings and the cinematic pictures, and they miss the strangest detail of all, which is that the devil thought he had a case. He did not approach a holy site like a thief. He approached it like a litigant. He believed he had legal ground to stand on. And Michael, whatever Michael was, did not argue back with his own counterclaim. He referred the matter higher. He said, "The Lord rebuke you." That is not the language of a soldier. It is the language of a witness who knows his role. We are going to spend the coming hours unfolding what stands behind those few words. We will look at how Moses actually died and at the Hebrew verb that hints at something unusual in his burial. We will read fragments of the lost book Jude almost certainly knew. We will hear what Origen and Clement and the early fathers wrote about this scene long before our modern arguments began. We will examine the strange logic of accusation in the ancient world, the reason a body could be contested, and what Lucifer believed he could gain. And we will arrive at the rebuke itself, and what it means that an archangel of heaven did not trust himself to speak a sentence of his own against the adversary. The story is older than most assume. It is stranger than most teachings allow. And it asks a question the church has rarely sat with directly. If the body of one man could provoke a dispute between Michael and the devil, what was so consequential about that body that heaven and hell both reached for it? The verse is one sentence long. The answer is not. Chapter 2. The burial. No human witnessed. Before there is a dispute, there is a death. And before there is a death, there is a man on a mountain looking at a land he will not enter. Deuteronomy 34 is a quiet chapter. After the thunder of Sinai, after 40 years of wandering, after the long farewell of Deuteronomy itself, the closing scene is almost gentle. Moses climbs Nebo. He stands on the height called Pisgah, which faces Jericho across the Jordan. The Lord shows him the whole land, from Gilead in the north to the Negev in the south, from the Mediterranean to the eastern hills. And then, the text says, Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. The Hebrew phrase is striking, al-pi Yahweh, literally, by the mouth of the Lord. Later Jewish interpreters, both rabbinic and pseudepigraphal, took this almost literally. They imagined Moses dying not by failure of the body, but by a kiss of God, a death drawn out of him gently. The text supports the imagery. His eye was not dim, the chapter says, nor his natural force abated. He did not waste away. He was called. Then comes the verse that has unsettled readers for centuries. He buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, and no man knows his sepulchre to this day. The Hebrew verb is singular. He buried him. The most natural reading is that the subject is the Lord himself. The translators of the Septuagint, working in Alexandria a few centuries before Christ, smoothed the verb into a plural. They buried him, perhaps uncomfortable with the boldness of the original. The Masoretic Hebrew did not soften it. It said what it said. God buried his servant. There is no other figure in the Hebrew Bible whose burial is described this way. Patriarchs are buried by sons. Kings are buried by attendants. Prophets are buried by disciples. Moses is buried by God. The location is given and then withheld in the same breath, opposite Beth Peor, which any Israelite would recognize. But the actual sepulchre, no man knows. The Hebrew word is kebher, the burial place itself. It is hidden, concealed. Why? The traditional answer, repeated for generations, is that God hid the grave to prevent Israel from making it a shrine. There is real weight to that reading. Israel had a recent and painful history of object worship. They had melted gold into a calf at the foot of Sinai. They had bowed to a bronze serpent until Hezekiah broke it centuries later. They had a tendency, deeply human, to anchor reverence to a place or a thing. A tomb of Moses would have become exactly that. But the explanation, persuasive as it is, does not exhaust the strangeness. Other holy sites were not hidden. The graves of the patriarchs at Machpelah were known. The tombs of the kings of Judah were known. Even the burial places of prophets were preserved. Why is this one grave alone wrapped in concealment? A second answer surfaces in the older Jewish writings. Moses was not finished. His role in the unfolding plan of God did not end on Nebo. He would appear again, in a vision on a different mountain, standing beside another prophet whose end was equally unusual. To leave his body in a known place would have set the stage in advance. To hide it left the future open. A third answer is the one Jude assumes his readers know. The grave was contested. There was a reason it could not be a public place. There was an argument that took place there, which the Torah does not narrate, but which a wider stream of Jewish memory preserved. The hiddenness of the tomb in Deuteronomy is not the end of the story. It is the silence around it. Stand for a moment with the picture. An old man, 120 years old, walks up a mountain. He looks across a river he will not cross. He dies at the word of the Lord. And then, at the place where he dies, something happens that the canonical text does not describe. A figure of light arrives to claim the body. Another figure of greater light intervenes. A word is spoken. The matter is settled. And only after that settlement does the verse close, and no man knows his sepulchre to this day. Read in that order, the verse stops being a footnote. It becomes the seal on a story. The Torah closes that chapter with one of the most extraordinary lines in the Hebrew Bible. There has not arisen a prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. The Hebrew is panim el panim, face to face. It is the language of intimacy reserved nowhere else in such density. Moses was not simply used by God. He was known by God in a way that placed him in a category by himself. That intimacy is part of why the body mattered. A body that had been close to God, whose face had once shone with reflected glory until it had to be veiled for the people's sake, was not an ordinary body. It carried, in some sense, the ancient world understood better than the modern, the residue of the encounter. And it is precisely such a body that the adversary came to claim. Chapter 3. The Lost Book. Jude was reading. There is a book that no longer fully exists, but whose shadow lies across the New Testament. It was called in Greek the analepsis Mouseos, the Assumption of Moses, or in some manuscripts, the Diatheka Mouseos, the Testament of Moses. Origen, the 3rd century scholar from Alexandria, refers to it by name when he comments on Jude. He says plainly that the dispute between Michael and the devil over the body of Moses comes from this book. He treats this not as a controversial claim, but as a known fact among educated Christians of his time. A single Latin manuscript of part of this work was discovered in the 19th century by an Italian scholar named Antonio Ceriani, who was working through the holdings of the Ambrosian Library in Milan. The text was incomplete. It broke off before reaching the dispute scene, but it preserved enough to confirm the genre, the dating, and the theological orientation of the lost work. Most scholars now date it to the early 1st century, possibly during the reign of Tiberius, which means it was already in circulation when Jude wrote his short letter. What we have is a farewell discourse. Moses, near death, summons Joshua. He speaks of what is to come. He prophesies Israel's future, sometimes in coded language, sometimes plainly. He gives Joshua charge of the people. Then the surviving manuscript breaks off, just as Moses begins to speak of his own departure. The portion describing the dispute over his body is gone. We know it existed because the church fathers quoted from it. Gelasius of Cyzicus, writing in the 5th century, preserved fragments. So did a later Byzantine writer. From their citations, we can piece together what the lost section contained. The devil approaches as Moses dies. He demands the body. He brings 2 charges. The first is that all matter belongs to him as the prince of this world, and a body is matter. The second is more pointed. He accuses Moses of murder, citing the Egyptian whom Moses struck down decades earlier in defense of a Hebrew slave. He frames Moses as a man with blood on his hands, and therefore a man whose body has no claim to honor. That second charge is the legal hinge. It is the basis on which the adversary stands. He is not arguing about ownership of the universe in the abstract. He is naming a specific act recorded in the Torah itself. Exodus 2 tells of Moses seeing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, looking this way and that, striking the Egyptian down, and hiding the body in the sand. The text does not condemn the act, but it does not exonerate it either. It simply records what happened. The adversary picks up that uncondemned fact and turns it into an accusation. This is what the courtroom of Jude 1:9 was about. A litigant standing on the letter of an old recorded act, demanding that justice be served by the surrender of the body. Michael, in the lost text, does not argue the case on its merits. He does not contest the facts. He does not deny that Moses struck the Egyptian. What he does is decline to bring his own railing accusation in return, and instead refer the matter to the Lord. The Lord rebuke you. 6 words. The case closes. This is the story Jude is referencing. He is not making it up. He is not endorsing the entire book as scripture. He is doing what New Testament writers occasionally do, which is to draw on a known piece of tradition for the sake of an example. His point in the letter is not, by the way, about Moses. It is about certain teachers in his community who are speaking arrogantly against angelic beings they do not understand. He is saying, look, even Michael did not presume. Michael, who could have, did not. He left judgment with God. The use of pseudepigraphal material in the New Testament is not unique to Jude. He does it again 3 verses later, quoting Enoch, another book outside the canon. The early church wrestled with this. Tertullian thought it argued for the inclusion of Enoch in Scripture. Jerome and Augustine disagreed. The settlement eventually was that Jude's letter belonged in the canon, and the books he referenced did not. But the references themselves were never erased. They are there, embedded, asking questions of every careful reader. The assumption of Moses, what we have of it, paints Moses in towering terms. It calls him the mediator of God's covenant. It says he was prepared from the beginning of the world to be the arbiter of his testament. It places his death not as an end, but as a transition. The book uses the word analepsis, taking up. It hints, without saying outright, that Moses did not simply die in the ordinary sense. That hint is significant. Some of the ancient streams of Jewish tradition held that Moses, like Enoch and Elijah, was taken. The biblical text says he died. The pseudepigraphal text suggests both. He died and he was taken. The dispute over the body fits inside that ambiguity. If the body was simply to decay in the ground, why dispute it? If the body was to be raised or transformed, the stakes change entirely. We do not have to settle that ambiguity here. The text of Jude does not require us to. What it requires us to see is that the body of Moses, in the worldview of first-century Jewish Christianity, was not inert. It was charged with meaning, and the adversary knew it. Chapter 4. The voice of the early fathers. The dispute over the body of Moses did not enter Christian conversation in the modern era. It was discussed openly, in detail, by the earliest writers of the Church. Clement of Alexandria, writing near the end of the 2nd century, knew the tradition. In his Stramata, his great mosaic of theology and philosophy and biblical interpretation, he refers to the assumption of Moses and treats it as accepted material. He does not dwell on the Michael-Lucifer scene at length, but he does not dismiss it. For Clement, the tradition about Moses' body fits into a larger pattern of how God honors his servants beyond the visible boundary of death. Origen, his student, goes further. In his commentary on the book of Joshua, and again in his work De Principiis, on first principles, he names the source. He says that in the book entitled The Assumption of Moses, which Jude makes mention of in his epistle, Michael the Archangel, disputing with the devil regarding the body of Moses, said this: "He is unembarrassed by the reference. He treats the lost book as a real document with real content, and the dispute as a real event in the spiritual realm." Origen's reading is also pastorally serious. He understands the scene as instruction in restraint. When dealing with powers above our pay grade, Origen suggests, the example of Michael is the right one. We do not match the adversary in volume. We do not bring our own accusations. We turn to the Lord and let his verdict stand. That is, in fact, exactly what Jude himself draws from the scene. Didymus the blind, the 4th century teacher who tutored Jerome, comments on the same passage. He tells the story in slightly different words. He notes that the devil's strategy was to use the killing of the Egyptian as legal grounds. He notes that Michael answered not with denial, but with deflection upward. He notes that Moses had repented of the act, and that the adversary's accusation, even if technically grounded in fact, was overruled by the Lord's prior forgiveness. That last detail matters. The fathers, reading this scene, consistently understood it not as a battle of strength, but as a courtroom in which an accusation, however technically real, had already been answered before it was spoken. Forgiveness in the past tense closes the case in the present. There were skeptics. Jerome, in his letter to Paulinus, is cooler toward the assumption of Moses. He acknowledges the tradition, but does not lean on it. Augustine is more cautious still. He notes that Jude's reference creates an interpretive difficulty, but he does not develop the dispute scene the way Origen and Didymus did. The Western tradition, broadly speaking, became more reserved over time. The Eastern tradition kept the story closer. What is striking, surveying the fathers as a whole, is the absence of denial. None of the major early voices say the dispute did not happen. None say Jude was wrong to reference it. The argument was about how to handle the source, the lost pseudepigraphal book, not about whether the event itself was real. They assumed it was. They differed on what weight to give it. That assumption deserves attention. The men closest to the apostolic period, who had access to traditions, manuscripts, and oral memory we have largely lost, took the scene as a real moment of contention in the unseen world. They did not domesticate it. They did not allegorize it into vapor. They held it as something that genuinely happened. There is also a thread in the Fathers about why the body of Moses, specifically, was the point of contention. Cyril of Alexandria, in passing, suggests that the body of Moses was destined for a future appearance, and the adversary, perceiving this, sought to disrupt it. Cyril does not develop the idea, but he plants it. The transfiguration of Christ, in the Gospels, has Moses standing beside Elijah, conversing with Jesus about his coming exodus, his departure in Jerusalem. For Moses to appear there in any form, his body had to be where God wanted it. The dispute on Mount Nebo in this reading was not about the past. It was about what was coming. Whether one accepts that connection or not, the early church preserved the discussion of it. The competitor video gestures at it briefly. The fathers gesture at it carefully. There is a difference between the two. And the difference is the weight of inherited reading versus modern dramatization. It is worth saying plainly, we are not the first to find this verse strange. We are not the first to ask what it meant. We are simply joining a conversation that has been going on for nearly 2,000 years, and the earliest voices in that conversation took the verse at its word. Chapter 5. The legal ground of the accuser. To understand why Lucifer thought he had a case, you have to understand how accusation worked in the ancient world. In the Hebrew scriptures, the figure who comes to be called the adversary, has Satan with the definite article, appears in particular settings. He stands in the heavenly court in the opening of Job, presenting himself among the sons of God. He stands before the angel of the Lord in Zechariah 3, accusing the high priest Joshua. In each appearance, his role is forensic. He is not, in those scenes, a hooved devil prowling the earth. He is a prosecutor. The Hebrew word Satan, without the article, is a common noun. It means an opposer, an accuser, sometimes simply an adversary in a legal sense. With the definite article, ha-Satan, it becomes a title. The Satan, the accuser. By the Second Temple period, the title had hardened into a proper name in much of Jewish thought, and by the time of the New Testament, the adversary had a personality, a history, and a theological role. That role, in the older texts, is to bring charges. In Job, he charges that Job's righteousness is bought, not real. In Zechariah, he charges that the high priest is unfit, dressed in filthy garments. In each case, the accuser presents what he believes to be a legitimate complaint. And in each case, the Lord answers, not by denying the facts on the table, but by reframing them. The dispute over Moses' body fits this pattern exactly. The adversary does not appear to seize the body by force. He appears to argue for it. He has a complaint. The complaint, according to the surviving fragments, is twofold. The first is metaphysical. As prince of this world, all matter falls under his jurisdiction, and a corpse is matter. The second is moral. Moses, decades earlier, killed an Egyptian. The blood is on the record. The first claim is broad. The second claim is sharp. And it is the second claim that gives the scene its tension. Exodus 2 is unflinching about what Moses did. He saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his own people. He looked this way and that, the text says, and seeing no one, he struck the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day, when his act was found out, he fled to Midian. There is no statement in the chapter that God commanded the killing. There is no statement that it was justified. The text simply records the act and its consequences. That uncondemned act, decades unbothered, becomes the adversary's exhibit. The legal logic is severe and not easy to dismiss. Numbers 35 lays down the law concerning a manslayer. The blood of the slain cries from the ground. There must be a settling. The law does not exempt prophets. It does not exempt deliverers. Moses himself wrote those laws. The adversary holds them up. And here is where the genius of Michael's response shows. He does not say, the killing was justified. He does not say, Moses repented, therefore the case is dismissed, although later fathers would draw out that reading. He says simply, the Lord rebuke you. He passes the case upward. He does not become the counter-prosecutor. He does not bring his own railing accusation. The Greek phrase is krisin epinakain blasphemias, to bring against him a judgment of slander. Michael declines. He will not match the accuser in kind. Why does this matter? because the structure of the scene reveals something about the way accusation operates against the people of God in general. The accuser does not always lie outright. Sometimes he stands on a true fact and demands its full weight. Sometimes he names a real act and asks for the legal consequence. The defense in such cases is not to argue the fact, but to refer the matter to a higher verdict, which has already been given. This is why Revelation 12 calls the adversary the accuser of the brethren, who accuses them before our God day and night. The image is not of a foe with a sword, but a litigator with a list. And the answer the chapter gives is not, the accusations were untrue. The answer is, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. The case is settled by what was paid, not by what was disputed. The dispute on Mount Nebo is a foreshadowing of that pattern. The adversary brings a true fact about a man who once killed another man. The Archangel does not contest the fact. He invokes the verdict of the Lord, who had already settled the matter long before. Moses had been pardoned in the wilderness, called face to face, entrusted with the law, used to deliver a nation. The Lord had already spoken on his standing. The adversary is too late. The case has been ruled on. What is being protected on Mount Nebo, then, is not just a body. It is a verdict. Heaven defends the verdict it has already passed. There is, in this, a sobering and a comforting thing at once. Sobering, because the adversary does have material. He brings facts. He cites pages. The facts are not invented. Comforting, because the verdict is older than the accusation. The Lord rebuke you is not a denial of the case. It is the announcement that the higher court has already closed it. Chapter 6. Why a body, and why this body? Of all the things that could have been disputed, why a body? And of all the bodies that could have been disputed, why this one? The first question presses against a deep instinct in much of Western thought. Bodies are usually treated, in modern conversation, as containers. The real person is the soul, the spirit, the consciousness. The body is what is left behind. On that view, a dispute over a body is a dispute over an empty shell, a leftover of no real consequence. That is not the biblical view. In the Hebrew imagination, the human person is unified. The Hebrew word nephesh, often translated soul, can also mean throat, life, person, self. Genesis 2 says God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Not got a soul, became one. The body, in this view, is part of the person, not a vessel for the person. Death disrupts the unity. Resurrection restores it. That is why a dispute over a body, in a Jewish framework, is not a dispute over property. It is a dispute over a person. To possess the body is to make a claim on the destiny of the one whose body it is. This is why the New Testament's emphasis on the resurrection of the body is not a side issue. It is the center. Paul argues in 1 Corinthians 15 that without the resurrection of the body, the entire gospel collapses. The body matters because the person matters, and the person includes the body. Now press the second question. Why this body? The body of Moses was not an ordinary body. The biblical text is explicit about this in ways that modern readers often skim. Exodus 34 says that when Moses came down from the mountain after speaking with God, the skin of his face shone, so that the people were afraid to come near him. The Hebrew verb is karan, which means to send out rays. It is the verb from which the noun horn is derived. which is why some medieval depictions of Moses, including Michelangelo's famous statue, show him with horns. The translators rendered the verb that way, and the imagery stuck. The point is not the imagery. The point is that Moses' face had been altered by encounter with God. The shining was not metaphor. The text says he wore a veil because the people could not bear to see it. Paul, writing centuries later in 2 Corinthians 3, returns to that detail and reads in it a parable of glory and the new covenant. So we are dealing with a body that had been physically marked, in some sense, by proximity to God. The face had radiated. The hand had held the tablets written by the finger of God. The mouth had spoken with the Lord face to face. This was a body that, in the categories of the ancient world and in the cosmology the Bible itself assumes, carried weight. Add to that the curious phrasing of Deuteronomy 34:7. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. The Hebrew is lealonas. His freshness, his sap, had not departed. He was 120 years old, and he was not a worn-out man. He was a man whose body had been preserved in vigor up to the moment of his death. There is something ungained in dying that way, a body that has not been broken down, a vessel that still holds its strength. Such a body, hidden, has options that an ordinary buried body does not. It can be raised, it can be transformed, it can appear elsewhere. The adversary, perceptive in matters of cosmic strategy, would have known this. Then there is the prophetic question. Centuries after Moses, on a mountain that the Gospel writers do not name precisely but tradition associates with Tabor or Hermon, 3 disciples saw their teacher transfigured. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record it. His face shone, the Gospel says, using language deliberately reminiscent of Moses' face. His clothing became dazzling white, and there appeared with him Moses and Elijah, talking with him. 2 figures, one who had been taken in a chariot of fire, one whose body had been disputed on Nebo and buried by God himself, both standing on the mountain in conversation with Christ about, Luke specifies, his exodus which he was about to fulfill in Jerusalem. Whatever the transfiguration was, Moses appeared in it. Whether in some restored body, in a translated body, in a body that had been preserved against decay, the text does not specify. It simply records that he was there. The dispute on Nebo, read in light of the transfiguration, is no longer about a corpse. It is about a participant in a future scene that had to be protected. This is part of why Cyril of Alexandria, gently, suggested that the adversary's interest was prophetic. He sensed the future. He acted to disrupt it. The dispute was not about the past. It was about the unfolding pattern of God's plan, in which Moses' body still had a role to play. There is one more thread, and it is theological rather than historical. In Hebrew thought, every covenant is sealed in something physical. Circumcision in flesh, sacrifice in blood, tablets in stone. The body of the mediator of the covenant is, in a real sense, a covenant token. To corrupt the body of Moses would have been, symbolically and perhaps spiritually, to mar the covenant he carried. The adversary's reach for the body was a reach for the covenant itself. That puts the stakes at their proper height. This was not a trophy hunt. It was an assault on the unfolding line of covenant from Sinai forward. Heaven's response was not optional. Chapter 7. The rebuke that settled heaven. 6 words ended the dispute. Epitimesai soi Kyrios. The Lord rebuke you. There is no thunderclap recorded. There is no flash of light. The Greek verb epitimao means to censure, to charge sternly, to lay a verdict against. It is the same verb the Gospels use when Jesus rebukes a fever, rebukes a wind, rebukes a demon. It is a word with weight in the spiritual realm. When the Lord epitimao something, that thing yields. But the speaker here is Michael, not the Lord. Michael does not rebuke in his own name. He calls the rebuke down. The grammar is precise. May the Lord rebuke you. It is, in the Greek, an optative form, a wish, a petition. Michael does not declare the rebuke. He asks for it. That choice of grammar is the heart of the scene. The mightiest of the archangels, called in Daniel one of the chief princes, called in Revelation the leader of the heavenly armies, did not consider it appropriate to issue a personal verdict against the adversary. He referred upward. Why? The fathers, again, are unanimous on this. Not because Michael lacked authority, not because Michael feared Lucifer, but because the matter was not Michael's to settle. A judgment against the adversary belongs to the one whom the adversary defied. Michael, however exalted, is a creature. He is not the judge. He is the servant of the judge. To stand in the place of the judge would have been, ironically, to repeat the adversary's own original sin, the reach for a place that was not his. So Michael does the opposite of what the adversary did. He keeps his place. He speaks within his commission. He points to the throne. The rebuke, when it falls, is the Lord's. The defeat of the adversary in this scene is not by force, it is by verdict. The case is closed by the higher court, and the lower party has no further standing. What happens to the body afterward, the text does not say. Deuteronomy says, "No man knows his sepulchre to this day." The assumption of Moses, in its lost portion, may have said more, but we do not have those pages. What the New Testament hints at in the Transfiguration is that the body was kept. Whether buried still, or transformed, or taken, it was held by God for what was to come. The simplicity of the rebuke is the part that has stayed with readers. There is no speech. There is no roll call of the adversary's crimes. There is no listing of the harm he has done. There is just, "The Lord rebuke you," and it is enough. This is, in some ways, the lesson Jude is drawing for his own readers. He is writing to a community where teachers are speaking arrogantly, claiming insight into spiritual realms, slandering powers they do not understand. Jude holds up Michael as the contrast. Even Michael, he says, when he disputed about the body of Moses, did not bring against him a railing accusation. The greatest of the archangels did not match volume with the adversary. He spoke 6 words and left the room. There is a discipline in that. It is not the discipline of timidity. Michael was not afraid. It is the discipline of knowing what is yours to do and what is not. The verdict is the Lord's. The witness is yours. Speak the witness. Leave the verdict. For the early church, this scene became a quiet model for spiritual practice. Origen drew from it. Didymus drew from it. The Desert Fathers, when they wrote about temptation, returned to it. The pattern was simple. When the accuser speaks, do not match him. Refer him upward. The Lord rebuke you. 6 words. No more. There is a comfort in that simplicity, which the noisier retellings sometimes miss. It says that the work of the believer in spiritual contention is not to construct elaborate counter-arguments. It is to know whose verdict matters and to invoke it. The case is not won by clever defense. It is won by the older verdict already passed. If something here has shifted the way you hear that verse in Jude, the channel will keep doing this kind of careful work. There is more coming. There is one final image worth holding. A mountain, a grave that no man knows, a silence over the place. And underneath the silence, an exchange that took place once, that the Torah did not record, that a lost book preserved, that the Apostle Jude pulled forward into a single sentence near the end of the Bible. The adversary came with a claim. The Archangel answered with a wish. The Lord rebuked. The body was kept. It is a small story, and in terms of verses. It is a vast story in terms of weight. And it leaves the reader with the same question it left every reader who has stopped on Jude 1:9 for the past 2,000 years. If a single body could provoke a heavenly dispute, what does heaven think of yours? The text does not answer the question directly, but the pattern of the verse hints. The Lord defended the body of his servant. The Lord did not let the accuser have the last word. The Lord settled the dispute by his own verdict, sent through the mouth of his archangel. That pattern is older than the gospel and woven through it. It is the same pattern by which the case against any belonging to him is closed, not by argument, not by strength, by a higher verdict already given. The Lord rebuke you. The case is closed. The body is kept. The story is older than we knew, and stranger, and finally, more comforting than the verse first appears. It was never a footnote. It was always a window.